the mind-body duality. The mind, you know, is a human function. We don't say that a beam has a mind. Squirrels don't really have minds. They may have brains, but they don't have a mind. That's something distinctly human. And the rest of it is body. You know, it's all this stuff, flesh and bones, just like every other living creature has, right? So that's nature. So this is not just biblical. This is part of the whole tradition, Western philosophy and of popular thinking. We all think that way. So the newspaper reads, earthquake kills thousands. What do you really think about it? Earthquake didn't kill thousands. Buildings. It should say buildings. Falling buildings kill thousands. Should it? But it doesn't, because we're fighting nature. Nature's fighting us, trying to stop us from being human. We're fighting back. But that's got to come to an end. I think the whole green movement, the mood of the moment generally among enlightened people in whatever part of the world is, we've got to stop thinking that way. We've got to work with nature. So maybe this is fantastical idea of mine, but in a sense it's in that spirit. Say, okay, if earthquake's going to shake things up, if earthquake is going to shift the earth and like tectonic plates, why can't, you know, it builds space for us. Why can't this shift and change actually be a construction and reconstruction in space? Yeah, space we don't know already how to behave in, but we can learn. Shifting my scale, as I often like to do, and I'm just going to go through the last couple of things here, because it's getting on. What time did we begin? 8:30? 8:45. Okay. Well, I just, as I said, I probably brought too much stuff. I'll just go quickly through this. I said I like the idea of practice. Okay. So I want to build things. I want to build ideas. So one chance I had, Anthony Vidler, who's a critic, philosopher of architecture, and writer, and dean of the Cooper Union, kind of invited me to make an installation there. And I said, yeah, I want to make a kind of field condition where there's kind of modular elements, similar pieces. And in this sketch, you see at the top are these wooden dowels that are kind of intersecting each other and joined together. At the bottom of the sketch, you can see all these lines. Those are steel cables. And what was important was that these dowels, when you insert them into this taut field of cables, makes it even more taut. It increases the tension in the field, you know. So by adding things in, it becomes more and more tense. But it's totally unified structurally because they're not isolated forces. They're all interconnected forces. So I and some colleagues, really my total collaborators here, the drawings on the walls I was making, but the assemblage of all these pieces was something that they did. You know, they put it together. They gave it a form. And that's the way I like to work. You know, I sit alone making drawings. But when it comes to building something in space that we're all inhabiting together, and to some degree, it's great to have others, you know, you're involved with. So I'm not one of those architects that says, I want the end product to look like my drawing. What I want is for the end product to be better than my drawing, to be bigger, you know, to have something that, you know, it couldn't have if I'm trying to control the end result. Okay, so these are just other shots of that installation called The Storm. Similar situation, a year or two later, Paul Virilio made a show called Sequia Reeve, which in English, I can't remember what he called it. But it was about accidents. And the Cartier Foundation gave them their exhibition space, and he had a lot of artists, filmmakers and so forth involved. And he asked me to make an installation, which you can see in this night view of Jean Nouvel, the building in Paris of the Cartier Foundation. very beautiful, kind of high-tech building, beautifully sited. And I had the main exhibition space on the ground floor. He wanted me to construct the fall. Of course, he at that time was obsessed with the World Trade Center having fallen. And I think a lot of French intellectuals were fascinated by that and wanted to get into that. I was not so much interested in that as I was the idea of transformational space, the space of transformation. The problem is with the fall, we see something the way it was, but it falls so fast, all you see is the pile of rubble, right? So you don't see the space of the fall itself in between, so to speak. It just happens too fast. But it seems rather important to try to visualize the dynamic. So, again, the drawings, so which are all about, in this case, systems, transformation of systems from one system into another system. And for the first time, I mean, in the construction in New York, I had used these lines in space. But I began to think, well, you know, I'm less interested in objects, but I'm also less interested in masses, therefore. Walls, blocks of material, blocks of space. I wanted to create a kind of a linear space, a kind of transparent space, but still a space with something definite about it. So just to go through these quickly, this is a view of the installation, which is all aluminum tubes, which were easy to bend. They're very workable. So they're just bent by hand in a vise right on the site. Those grids on the floor are made out of aluminum. They hold we couldn't drill holes in the floor. So we had to have somewhere to plant the rods. That was fine. The grid was fine as one system, which got disturbed, and then it produces these spaces that you can walk through that are kind of contour spaces, spaces about edges, spaces about contours rather than traditional architectural ideas of planes and masses. Just two more things to show you. You know, all of these crisis places, right? I mean, there's Sarajevo, we had, you know, I didn't even tell you that image of the earthquake, the building falling over was from Taichung City in Taiwan in '99. So all these disasters and so on. And there were other things about Havana, Cuba, and so forth, about the decay of the old city there. But Vienna is a place, again, I kind of came to. I'd like to take total responsibility, but sometimes these things kind of present themselves. So Vienna is not a city that I would have picked out to go to. I mean, it certainly has a lot of great art. There's been great literature and music, God knows. I mean, so there's a lot to Vienna, but in terms of contemporary city, I got drawn into it mainly by a man named Peter Nover. Peter Nover is the director of the Angewandte Kunst Museum, the MAC, so-called. And he's a very innovative guy. He took that over in '86, and he has used it not as a historical museum. They have all the great collection of Wiener Werkstätte and Biedermeier and all that, you know, historical design stuff. This is an applied art museum. But he's brought in all kinds of contemporary people. And he'd invited me there over the years to give lectures and so on. So recently he asked me to make an exhibition. We've been talking about doing it for years. I'm not even showing you some of the crazy schemes I had, which he backed totally, for the first district. That's what we're looking at here.